Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Orbit Football Podcast. Going through another episode once again here for Rivalry Week, Week 13. This is part 2 of our preview. You could check out part 1 as well as our Week 12 recap. If you look at our past episode that we did, we went about 2 hours and 15 minutes with that one, guys. So, this one might be approaching that as well tonight, but and I say tonight because we are recording this Wednesday evening. Funny enough, we had a line change in a certain game that we will get to as well later in the episode. But we're really excited to get into this episode. I'm joined by Blake and Tyler once again. We're going to be breaking down really only about 5 games. So here's how we're going to structure this today. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 5 major games that we're going to break down for Rivalry Week. Those 5 games will be in order: Ohio State, Michigan, Texas A&M, LSU, Alabama, Auburn for the Iron Bowl, Florida State, Florida, and Clemson and South Carolina are the 5 games we're going to do in great detail. However, between each of those games, we've got 4 games that are rivalry games in between there. They're going to be quick hitters. We're going to go through those ones as well. Just kind of go through it and say, all right, who are you picking in this game? Don't really have to give a score for that one. The only time that we're going to go with the score and our typical thing is with those 5 major games. So that's how we're going to stick with the episode today. So let's waste no time and let's talk about the biggest game probably in the country, maybe this year. Ohio State and Michigan. This game, the game, gotta call it by its rightful name. Everything has been shaping around this game this entire year for both of these programs. Ohio State, they've somehow, a lot of people did not think that they would be 11-1 heading into Michigan week. Well, they are 11-0 heading into Michigan week. They are 11-0. They are undefeated. Michigan, they've steamrolled through their schedule this year. This is it's best on best. It's Big Ten football at its finest. It's 2 teams where Michigan's got the upper hand the past 2 years. For the first time in a while, they bested Ohio State really since the turn of the century, and really for the duration of our lives. It's been all Ohio State in this rivalry, but Michigan's trying to turn the tide once again. They've been dealing with a bunch of off-field stuff that we have detailed throughout the year. They're still dealing with it right now. Fingers are being pointed from, the directions out in Columbus to Ann Arbor. So almost everything is surrounding this game. A Big Ten title is likely surrounding this game. A college football playoff appearance is likely surrounding this game. Everything is on the line in this game, as it should be. And I'll ask you first, we'll start with Blake today. Blake, this game, the game, how are we feeling about it Saturday, high noon on Fox?
Yeah, this is what I think everybody's kind of been looking at as what is probably going to be the game of the year, at least in regular season play. This is everyone's been anticipating this, especially since the Michigan scandal kind of came about with the sign stealing and everything since then. Even before that, with the early season Harbaugh suspension, I think everyone's been looking forward to this game there too, but it just got heightened by everything that happened since then. This is a game that everyone's looked forward to. All year long, and for good reason. I mean, this is what we expect to be the game of the year for a reason. All of us have this. This is a top 5 matchup of our power ratings. Obviously the AP agrees with our rankings, as does the college football playoff. Everything's got this as a top 5 matchup here, and I think it's going to deliver for sure. This game in the Big House. Michigan has won this game the last 2 years. Not to be overlooked. This game, as you said, Cade, has been dominated by Ohio State since the turn of the century, since we've all been on this planet. This has been Ohio State's football game to just carry throughout. But Michigan, the last 2 years, has taken this one under Harbaugh, with things having changed. But questions have been raised about what does the sign stealing do with that, and how much of a role has that played in this whole thing? There's differing opinions on that, certainly. But personally, I think Michigan's been a good football team the last few years, and that they've been built to be a better team where it matters than Ohio State has been. I've worried about Ohio State the last several years with their ability to be physical up front, with their ability to contend where they need to be powerful at, and to be a true contender at. They've always been talented outside and at the quarterback position with Ryan Day. Since he got there. and that's been their thing for the last several. But they haven't been a physical team. But that's changed this year. They've been a physical team up front, both sides of the football. They've shown great defensive prowess. They've shown, a solid offensive front. They've wavered at times, but when it's mattered most, the offensive line has stepped up there. Um, it's just that kind of it's a spot where Ohio State, what they've struggled at under Ryan Day, he has completely changed his identity, and they've taken a huge step up in those areas. That's why I've been so high on Ohio State all year long. Ever since, well, I shouldn't say all year long. I had my worries about them preseason. I won't lie. I worried about them. What if they were going to show, the improvements that they needed to show. But early in the season, I realized that they were showing these, and that they were a true contender nationally for the national title. Which they weren't in previous years under Ryan Day. This is the first year I truly believe that they can win a national title under Ryan Day with the changes he's made. So they're built, to contend with Michigan, to contend with Georgia. These physical teams up front, win the line of scrimmage, win defensively, and try and slow down offenses and try and just wear a team down. Can they do it against Michigan, which has been, one of the best defenses in the country all year long, which has been one of the best offensive lines in the country all year long? You talk about LSU, Georgia as the two kind of big contenders against them there. Um, it's a good question to say. I think Ohio State's defensive line in this game is going to be a tough matchup for Michigan, certainly. When you look at what they did against Penn State, they didn't really trust their offensive line to really protect J.J. McCarthy and pass pro against that really good edge rush against for Penn State. Ohio State's got talented edge rushers out there. Not quite what Penn State has, but they've got the raw talent at edge. Especially JTT is what people are going to talk about. He's got great burst off the edge. He doesn't have quite the pass rush moves that a guy like Chop Robinson has. But JTT can get that burst off the edge, and if he can get a quick move out where he just beats the tackle around the edge, he'll be in the backfield without a question. That's going to be a big spot for Michigan or for Ohio State here if they can just get in the backfield with any level of consistency against the Michigan offensive line, which is also getting banged up here a little bit, which should not be overlooked. The Michigan offensive line has sustained a handful of injuries over the past few weeks. I'm not sure if they're going to all be completely available yet or not. We're still waiting on word for a couple of those guys, so we'll see about that. But the Michigan offensive line's health is going to be a big role in this game, obviously. Um, but I think regardless of whether they're healthy or not, I think the Ohio State defensive line and the defensive front in general is going to play, or it's going to see some significant success here. You talk about Michigan, everyone thinks they want to run the football because of what they saw against Penn State, which is really the only game most people have seen. Michigan can throw the football with some pretty high success. At least they have for most of the season. The last few weeks, McCarthy has struggled, certainly. So there's going to be a part of this where can the Ohio State defensive backfield match up against McCarthy and the receivers there? I think they personally absolutely can. I have no real worry about that. It's going to be my biggest thing in this game uh, for the defensive side of the football for Ohio State and offensively for Michigan is that can Ohio State defend the outside run for Michigan, because Ohio State's linebackers are not the fastest guys in the country by any means. And Michigan can run outside the tackles pretty well. Blake Corum has been good about that. Donovan Edwards not so much. He struggled getting outside. He struggled with that burst, but Blake Corum has been great at that role. And Michigan's receivers can block really well outside there. So can they run outside the tackles well enough? And realistically, on the other side of the football, it's the same issue. Can Ohio State run successfully outside the tackles with TreVeyon Henderson there? Michigan, on that side of the football, defensively, has some quick linebackers that can defend the edge well, and their cornerbacks as well are really good in the run game. So that's going to be an issue for Ohio State if they can run outside the tackles, because we've seen Kyle McCord struggle in recent weeks, especially. He's made some clear, first year starter mistakes you would expect him to make early in the season, but he didn't make them early. He made them of recent. You worry about that a little bit. Ultimately, though, as I get into my actual prediction here, I think he's going to clean that up a little bit. McCord will. I think Ohio State will see just enough success outside the tackles. I don't think they're going to see it inside. I think they've got to run the ball outside. They've got to get guys in motion early, get them up to speed on the snap. You're going to see some orbits there. just as the name of the podcast here suggests, you're going to see some orbit motions there probably to get some guys in motion early. Some jet sweeps there. Some Henderson and Egbuka are the primary guys that see that kind of action. Get guys in motion early, get guys up to full speed, get them outside the tackles, and just hope that you can get a block outside to hit that lead bagger from Michigan. It's going to work, I think, just good enough to get some guys free. And I think defensively, I like what Ohio State's shown all year long. I've been on this game. I thought Ohio State was going to win this game at the beginning of the year, regardless of what I thought about the team. I felt good about the matchup for this team. So I'm going to take Ohio State to win this one. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to deliver to the game of the year standards, but I'm going to take Ohio State to win it in the Big House and to lock their spot in the Big Ten title game. It's going to be close. I'm going to take it 29-26 for the Buckeyes.
So you're going really close with this one, Blake. A lot of good points there. I'll turn it over to Tyler now. Tyler, what is your thoughts on the game this year?
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of what Blake said. My biggest worry though is that when it comes to Kyle McCord, he has been he's been fine. He's done basically what he's been asked to do. But I think in a game like this, it's not the same as the Penn State game. You might feel like it is, but I feel like in this game he's gonna have to make some plays that he hasn't made. I'm not going to say all year because he has made some plays, but when it comes to turnover-worthy plays compared to explosive plays, I don't know the exact numbers after the Minnesota game last week, but he was entering with 12 turnover-worthy plays that were not interceptions or turnovers to 12 explosive passing plays. So the offense just isn't explosive. That's not the Ohio State offense we've seen the past few years. They're a lot more they're more fine with just dink and dunk, trying to work the ball downfield, run the ball on first down, just to kind of help Kyle out. But it hasn't been the same offense. And in the past 2 years, when we're talking about offense, obviously Michigan put up quite a bit of points, but last year when we come about it, it was an execution thing. Ohio State could have been up, they could have had 35 points at halftime if they were able to convert all of the the situations that they put themselves in, but they just couldn't. And it was a close game at halftime. I believe Michigan was actually up at halftime. It's going to be an execution thing for me because I think that I know what I'm going to get from Michigan. I'm going to get a team that's up and ready to play. They have just consistently been. They've been who they are, especially the last 2 weeks. Michigan, like you said, can make plays. I do think they're going to lean run here. I think they're going to try to, put themselves at the forefront here. They're going to let Ohio State know, we're going to body bag you. We are going to bully you. And for Ohio State, you were talking like you said, I think their defense has been fantastic this year. Jim Knowles is in, he's in awards for a reason. He's very good at his job. But we were talking about this last year when Jim Knowles was doing an excellent job all year, and just a few mistakes, running zero maybe too many times, just kind of cost them. I'm not going to say the game, but it put them behind. And it, I think, I've talked with Kate all week. I think if you're Ohio State, I don't know if you can get behind in this game. And if I think I've said this. If Michigan wins the toss, they're going to take the ball. I think that's what's going to happen 100%. And if if Michigan can get up 7-0 early, what's going to be probably 35 degrees, clear, maybe cloudy skies, no weather should be in the area, but just going to be a cold game. It's not going to be. It's going to be a very not fun game to play in weather-wise, but. It should be an interesting game. My biggest thing, though, is that I just don't think Ohio State can go down early. I don't feel good about them trying to come back from behind because Michigan, but I feel better about them being able to come from behind just because I think this team is rallying behind the situation at hand. I do think that if Michigan does win this game, you think they're annoying now, just wait until 4 o'clock that day. It'll be an interesting turnaround, but with everything I've said, I'm going to pick Michigan to win this one. I'm going to pick them to cover. It's only 3.5 points. Going to go low scoring here. I'm not expecting a lot of points. I've kind of nailed the not a lot of points part about Ohio State and Michigan this year. I'm going to go 23-14. Do think it'll be a close game, but I think Michigan. I just know what I'm getting from them, and I think I need to see some things that Ohio State hasn't done this year. and I think that's going to be the case on Saturday.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points there too, Tyler. But and honestly, this game is going to be close. And you did say that Ohio State was not down at half last year. Actually, it was 20-17. The Buckeyes led into halftime over Michigan, which is what a lot of people forget because a lot of people remember about that game. I've recently gone back and I've watched this game. Pretty heavily. The past couple of days because I wanted to just gauge and see really how the past 2 years have played out for Ohio State. And, 2 years ago, 2021, up in the Big House, that game, as a person that's, from the Columbus area, from the Central Ohio area, has a little bit of a fandom and a stake in Ohio State football. That I felt pretty solid going into that game and really watching that game. Michigan, it was a pretty close game, I will say, actually, throughout the first half, even throughout the majority of the third quarter. Michigan just ran the ball over Ohio State, and they had the back-breaking drive that was capped off by the final Hassan Haskins touchdown, and that was the football game. Moving forward, last year, I did not feel confident about that game. That's probably the least confident I've ever felt about an Ohio State-Michigan game in my life, and I was in attendance beforehand of the 2018 rendition of the Ohio State-Michigan game with the Revenge Tour. I was there in the shoe. I did not feel good about that game until I arrived there, until I arrived at Ohio Stadium that day at 7 o'clock in the morning of the game with the noon kickoff on Fox, everything. As soon as I got there, as soon as I felt the aura of that stadium and of that game, I felt like Ohio State was going to win that game. And they, that's the last time Ohio State has not been favored in this game was in 2018, was the Revenge Tour year for Michigan. And Ohio State went out and hung over half 100 on Michigan. Now, I don't think that'll happen this weekend. I don't think that'll happen at all. I think this year we're going to get a game that's shaping up like how 2016 was. Just a back and forth game that could really go anybody's way. But I do agree with Tyler here. He brings up a lot of good points. Ohio State cannot go down early in this ball game. They can't. That's the one thing that they haven't been able to do. And he said they haven't really been able to play behind this year. Well, I say flashback to the Notre Dame game. I mean, look at that game. Ohio State, for a majority of the back half of the fourth quarter of that ball game, they were down, and it looked like the game was going to be over when they couldn't score on the 4th and 1. They went for it, didn't get it, and it looked like the game was going to be over. And then a play by JT Tuimoloau, and a couple plays later, saving a timeout, Ohio State drives down the field and they beat Notre Dame in their house on a walk-off touchdown from Chip Trayanum. And, a game that I had written off that the game was over, and Ohio State came back and won, in an emphatic fashion at that. They really, to me, Ohio State dominated that Penn State game, and I'm using these two games because those are the only games that I can think of that compare in my mind to this game. Nothing compares to this game, though. That has been, Tyler said that perfectly. This game is a whole different beast of itself. It always is a whole different beast of itself because no matter if a team is 5-6, no matter if a team is 7-5, every single year this game is going to be competitive. There's going to be, jobs are on the line because of this game. Especially with how Ohio State fans feel things have gone in the past with certain teams having very talented football teams, and you can't get the job done against Michigan. That's the big thing about this game, and that's the start of the narrative around Ryan Day. The more I've understood Ryan Day this year, the more I've actually understood this football team this year. Ryan Day, in my opinion, no matter what happens on Saturday, should keep his job in Columbus because he's doing a very, very good job. Because here's the one thing that Blake hit on: he's adaptable. He's a coach that has been able to change the tide of his program. After, Urban Meyer left and those Ohio State teams under Urban Meyer would dominate Michigan, would win those games pretty handedly, even in certain situations when they couldn't besides 2016. And then even then they found a way to win. But that was the program that Ohio State was around Michigan. It was a gritty team. You had these great, they were good up front. They were physical football teams. They had, they had probably, I would say, overall less talent than Ryan Day has been dealt with at Ohio State. But the way that they were coached, it was a different environment because Urban Meyer understood what it meant, and that's a lot of what the talk has been about Ryan Day, is that he doesn't understand the rivalry. He hasn't been born in it. He hasn't been around it too much. I think he understands it perfectly this year, because I think he understands he's got some pressure on him this weekend. How much that pressure is, who really knows? I don't think it's that heatful. I think it's just, the fan base of college football is what it really is. And being able to beat your, hated rival. I think that Ohio State, I agree with Blake here. This has been the first time under Ryan Day, since probably the 2019 team, that I've truly thought Ohio State legit has a shot to win a national championship this year. I wanted to tell myself I liked the way they matched up against Georgia last year. I did the entire season, but I did not feel good about the Michigan game, and that exactly happened. Ohio State matched up very well against Georgia. They were a couple plays away from winning that football game last year, and in all likeliness, winning a national championship last year in that ball game. But it didn't bounce their way, but they still got beat by Michigan. And it's a different story this year, and I watched it against Notre Dame, because that football game, those were two very even teams. Ohio State had to go into hostile territory and face Notre Dame. Didn't look the greatest, and this is a completely different Ohio State team that we've got this weekend than what happened in Notre Dame back in September. And I've in that game, I didn't feel too confident about that game and Ohio State's ability to win it. They somehow pulled it out. And they did it in the way that I think they're going to have to be able to when it comes to the games against, the Georgias and the Michigans of the world, because that's what I see from this football team this year, is that Ohio State is built this year to match up against Michigan, against Georgia, against those teams that are just absolutely dominating up front, where you look at them and it feels like it's a David versus Goliath situation as a football player. I feel like Ohio State is built this year. They're not as, here's the word I'm going to use, they're not as finesse. Even though they are finesse, they're not as finesse. They're a little bit more gritty. It's a different vibe in Columbus this year that I got from that team. And I think it's noticeable for a lot of people that understand what's happened with Ohio State this year. Michigan on the other side, this team is, for the first 11 weeks of the season, this was the most dominating football, or first 10 weeks of the regular season, it was the most dominating football team in all of America. They were winning games big. They were looking very good. And then there was the situation of the sign stealing that happened, around that week 7, week 8 area. And since then, a lot of people came into question, well, has Michigan's wins over Ohio State been legit the past 2 years? Or did they just know their signs? A lot of what's being questioned in this game, and that we really actually haven't been able to talk about much on the podcast this year, is that, Jim Harbaugh is not coaching this football game. He's not going to be on the sidelines. He's not going to be in the stadium. Now, a lot of people make a big thing out of Jim Harbaugh not being on the sidelines, and as a locker room guy, as that Harbaugh is, yeah, I can see it. But as a decision maker on the sidelines, Jim Harbaugh doesn't do anything except for timeouts and really the fourth down crucial situations. Now, granted, those situations can swing the tide for a team, but he doesn't call plays. He doesn't call the defense, and I think that we kind of saw that against Penn State. Even though the embarrassment of a post-game interview that was for their offensive coordinator there, Moore. He's just an offensive coordinator who's calling plays, and he's been the acting head coach. And Michigan doesn't really change anything for me with Harbaugh being on the sideline or Harbaugh not being on the sideline, personally for me in this game. Because I made my decision about this game 3 weeks ago. And I've stuck to it, and everything that's happened since has just confirmed what I think about this game. I think Michigan's a very good football team this year. But I think it's the same Michigan that we've got year after year after year. And by that, what do I mean by that is people this year were saying, oh, Michigan's the most dominant team ever. Michigan's the most dominant team ever. It took me a minute to really buy into it. It did. I did buy into it. I do respect that they're a very good team in college football. But the more I watch this team, the more I actually sit down and watch this team play football, it's the same Michigan teams of the past couple years. It's the same Michigan teams. They're no different from last year. They're no different from 2021. The only difference they got from last year is that I think last year might have been a better team for Michigan when you look at certain aspects of this team. And even 21, they had better aspects than what they do this year. They had a better pass rush in 21, which really, helped them win that Ohio State game big with guys like Chase Hutchinson. This year, they don't, it's a different shaped team. I think this is the best all-around team that Michigan has had under Harbaugh. But, I think that now I'm going to go into actually breaking down this game. And, I personally think what this comes down to is quarterback play. I said it last year. I said it last year in the middle of the game. I didn't think I didn't think, and I kind of still don't think J.J. McCarthy is good enough to dominate Ohio State through the air. And I understand people are going to sit there and say, why are you saying this? Didn't you see the pass he had over the top wide open to Johnson last year? Didn't you see when he was pressured in the pocket last year and dumped it off to Johnson, who took it 69 yards to the house? I did see it. When he's pressured, though, JJ is just like any other quarterback in the country. I mean, obviously, I think JJ got a lot of hype this year that I don't think is deserving for him because, some people were saying, well, he could be a first-round draft pick. I never saw that from JJ. I think he's a very fine college quarterback. I think he is. I think that, him having his legs is a very beneficial thing for him and allows him to extend plays, allows him to be a really threat for that Michigan offense. But I still question what he can do through the air, especially against an Ohio State secondary that, funny enough, I never thought I'd be saying this at the beginning of the season, probably one of the best in college football this year. Denzel Burke has gone from a guy that Ohio State fans absolutely hated to a guy that could be a first-round draft pick and an All-American at cornerback. Like, that's insane to me. But that just goes to show what Jim Knowles has done with the defense. I think that this game is it's very interesting because then you look at Kyle McCord, and Kyle McCord he's Kyle McCord. He's fine. He's not going to light you up. He's not fantastic. He just gets the job done. That's all he's got to do in this ball game, in my opinion. He's just got to get the job done. He's had a couple of those passes where he's been forcing them throughout the year. He had a couple in the Penn State game and in the Notre Dame game where he probably should have turned the ball over 3-4 times in those ball games. Didn't happen. And that, it did well for Ohio State to win that game. But I think it comes down to, like I said, quarterback play in this situation and just being able to score because Ohio State last year, funny enough, yes, last year, it was very similar to 21, but last year's field, it was such a closer ball game. Ohio State really played, besides the two big played passing touchdowns from McCarthy to Cornelius Johnson, Ohio State dominated that first half of that ball game. And two plays came back to really bite them, but the thing was, Ohio State couldn't punch it in the end zone. Same thing that happened against Clemson in 2019 with Ryan Day as their head coach. That's where you got to capitalize in this game, is that you have to be able to get 7. You have to be able to reach the end zone. You can't settle for field goals in this game this year, especially with the offense not being as powerful as it's been for Ohio State in the past. You got to punch it in this year. And I think because they have a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., who's one of the best, receivers, probably receiving prospects ever in the history of football, they're going to be able to do some things, toward the red zone, but somebody else is going to have to step up. And is somebody going to be able to step up? I think they will. I think Ohio State has that opportunity. Like I said, I made up my mind about this game 3 weeks ago because I sat there and I said, what's different this year? What makes me feel different this year? And I said, well, Ohio State's a physical football team. And if they're a physical football team, what has that done in the past against Michigan when it's been a very evenly matched teams? Ohio State's won it. No matter if it's in Ann Arbor, no matter if it's in Columbus, Ohio State's won it. And I just think that this team this year is also hitting its peak right now. And granted, obviously, that doesn't really, matter in the fact of this game personally, because as Blake said in our preview, both these teams really just kind of have weeks going into these games where they just kind of have letdown weeks. They don't look the best. And Ohio State's finally looked pretty good heading into the Michigan week. But, yeah, I mean, they did look good 2 years ago, too, against Michigan State, where they dropped 49 points in the first half. But, I don't know. I just feel there's a different feel to me this year about this game. A feel enough to where I wouldn't say I feel confident in a pick of this game, but I feel like if it comes down to talent v. talent and how these football teams play each other, I think a certain team is coming out on top, and with that, I'm going to pick the Buckeyes in this one. I feel like it would be, I don't think I could go against Ohio State in this game. I really only have in my lifetime one time, and that was last year, and I was correct with that pick. But I think Ohio State's just got something. Something that's going to push them over to where the past couple years they've been in a bend and then break, where this year it's going to be a bend but don't break. They're not going to break this year, and that's going to be the importance of this game. They're not going to break this year. So with that being said, I got a very similar score to what Blake has in this ball game. I got this game 26-23 Ohio State. I've had this score. I've had this pick. Like I said, I've had this locked in for 3 weeks, and everything that happens just confirms what I think about this ball game. So 26-23, I'm rolling with the Buckeyes. Feel like I kind of have to in this ball game, but that's my pick in that ball game. So now to our first of our really pick'em, rapid fire pick'em games. Another game on noon, ABC game, Kentucky and Louisville in this ball game. This is going to be a very interesting game in the sense that Louisville's locked themselves in the ACC champ game, but I'll hit it to you quick here first, Blake. Who do you think's winning, Kentucky or Louisville?
Yeah, Louisville really impressive the last few weeks. Kentucky has been a kind of disappointing team all year long. A lot of people picked them to be kind of high up in the East and the SEC, and they have not been that by any means. So I'm going to take Louisville here. I just like what the Cardinals have shown me all year long. This game being in Louisville helps that a lot. I don't think this game's going to look close when you end up seeing it happen live. I think the score will look a little closer. I'm going to take it 21-12 for the Cardinals here.
So you're going with Louisville in this one. You gave a score there, too. You didn't even go with the pick 'em. You gave a score there on the fly. So, Tyler, I'll turn it over to you. What's your pick for this one?
Yeah, I'm not going to be giving scores for the just pick 'em games, but I think Blake kind of hit it on the head. Kentucky just not been what they've supposed to be. Louisville, also not what they were supposed to be. They are much better. I don't think a lot of people seen this coming, and I think Louisville, all they need is two more weeks of gas in the tank, and they could be in the playoff. And with that being said, I think Kentucky probably ran out of gas a few weeks ago. I'm going to go Louisville to win. I think they do cover 7.5.
So you're going with Louisville in this one. I'm going to go real quick for this. Governor's Cup, as mentioned, for the Battle of Kentucky. I'm rolling with Louisville as well in this one. I'm going to go for them to cover as well in this one. I just think Louisville is a really good matchup in this ball game against Kentucky, who's been a very one-sided and one-faceted football team this year. But now I'll go back to Blake. We got the Redbird rivalry on at noon at CBS Sports Network. Miami, Ohio has Redhawks, who have locked in a position in the MAC title game. They travel to Ball State. This one, interesting one. Blake, we'll go for you. Are you sticking with the Redhawks in this ball game?
Yeah, I got some skin in the game here. Obviously, as an alum of Miami University, we're headed to Detroit. We're headed to the MAC title game. We won the East last week. Locked that spot in over with the win over Buffalo. I like what I've seen from Miami all year long. They've shown competence on both sides of the football. You worry about the offense without Brett Gabbert, but they've shown the ability to keep going with AV on there. He's got plenty of experience. He played a lot last year. He's shown plenty of levels of confidence this year. The offense has kept rolling to a high enough level, at least to make it through this game. I think we're going to go into the MAC title game 10-2. So I'm going to take the Miami Redhawks here to win the Redbird rivalry over Ball State here in Indiana here.
So you're going to go with Kentucky in this one. I'll ask you, Tyler, now. Or, excuse me, Miami. I was still stuck on the last one. Miami here for Blake. What are you going with this one, Tyler?
Yeah, I think this team kind of I think they've been very they are revolted after the unfortunate Brett Gabbert loss. They've looked good with Avion in at quarterback. Defense is playing lights out, and I don't think Ball State's going to be able to expose that. I'm going to go with Miami win, and I do think they will cover as well.
So there you go. You're going with that one. I'm agree with you both here. I'm going to go Miami to win and cover in this one. Only a 5.5 in the Redbird rivalry. I think they're going to get it in this one. Miami just looking like a pretty solid team that's going to, as mentioned, trying to win that MAC title and get that revenge against Toledo. Now to another one. Back to the Big Ten in this one, sticking in the Midwest. Indiana and Purdue, the battle for the Old Oaken Bucket. These teams also kind of battling for who's going to be standings-wise and record-wise, the worst team in the Big Ten this year. Purdue favored because they're at home, 3.5 BTN. Blake, what is your thought on this game?
Ryan Walters in his first season here at Purdue has been underwhelming without a doubt. And we're going to look at him, taking on Tom Allen, what I think most of us believe will be his last game at Indiana. So you wonder what Indiana will do here in this one. I'm going to take Purdue to win this game. Frankly, I think the Indiana team is not very good. I think that team is probably kind of falling apart as well. I think this is going to be an unfortunate way to see the end of the Tom Allen era at Indiana. So I'm going to take Purdue to win this game here.
So you're going with Purdue in this ball game. Tyler, I'll ask it to you now. Are we rolling with Purdue as well?
Yeah, I am. I think they do win and cover. Like you said, I think Indiana just haven't really been in a good spot ever since the COVID season. They have just been horrible. And I don't think Purdue is much better, but I do think Purdue is in a better spot. I think they're a little bit more stable as a program right now, so I do think Purdue wins and covers.
I am going to agree with you both. I'm going with Purdue to win and cover. I think they're just, better in this situation, and I'm going to go with them in this one. Now to a game that does not have a name, one of only 3 games that does not have a name or a trophy that they're battling for. UConn at UMass. This one's interesting. Both these teams non-bowl eligible, but it is a rivalry, so we're going to pick it. Blake, are we going with the Huskies or the Minutemen in this one?
This is just a fun matchup to see here. A couple of teams that are nothing to gain, nothing to lose. Just a full pride on pride matchup here. Don Brown, Jim Mora showing off here. A couple of almost legendary college football names at this point. I'm going to take the Huskies here. I don't have a great feeling on this one, but I just have a lean towards UConn. I'll take UConn to win. I'll take UConn to cover here at 2.5 point favorites here. So give me the Huskies here.
So you're going with UConn in this one. Tyler, I'll ask you now, UConn or UMass?
I'm going to go with UMass to win. I do think they cover. They are at home, obviously. They are underdogs, actually, 2.5 point favorites for UConn there, but I think we know what Don Brown's going to give them. They're going to press up. They're going to play, very, very tight defense. I don't think UConn will be able to, go against that very well, and I do think UMass they'll take this one.
So you're going with UMass in this one. Me, I don't really know. I'm kind of tough on this one, but I'm going to go with UConn in this one. That's where I'm going to roll. I'm going to roll with the Huskies in this ball game. That's going to be my pick. A little bit of a gut pick there. But now to our second game that we're going to go in depth in this episode of the Orbit Football Podcast for our second preview for week number 13, the rivalry week, Texas A&M at LSU. This one we're going to go in depth for. Noon kick, high noon, ESPN, 11 Eastern time. A lot of fight back from LSU fans that this is not a night game as it usually is. But, A&M obviously lost Jimbo Fisher. LSU at this point, they're just trying to play to give Jaden Daniels a chance at the Heisman Trophy. But it's an interesting matchup. But, Blake, I got to ask you first, since you're the one that kind of has a bit more skin in the game with this one. How are we leaning in depth here with this A&M, the Aggies versus the Tigers of LSU this weekend?
Yeah, I have some high concern here for LSU. Obviously, as the resident LSU fan here, I've liked what I've seen out of this team. For the last several weeks, they've responded to having the unfortunate defensive performances that we've been cursed with all season long. It sounds as if changes will be made there, which needs to happen. But the defense has just been pathetic all year long, and I don't think you're going to see much of a change there. I don't think the coaching has been there to get the guys where they need to be by any means. So it's going to be a question of, realistically, I think, who's available for both teams. These are teams that have worn down pretty heavily, that have been kind of hit hard by injuries, of course, with one team without a head coach now, as Jimbo Fisher was relieved of his duties a couple of weeks ago here. It sounds as if, A&M has enjoyed the coaching change. Elijah Robinson there as the defensive has stepped up as the interim head coach at A&M, and everyone seems to the players seem to be enjoying that change. They seem to like him there, which is good, obviously for them. but it's just an odd spot. You wonder if Evan Stewart will play for A&M and a couple other guys there on the defense side of football. There's questions about LSU side wise. We're waiting to hear if Logan Diggs will go for LSU. The lead back there that we've had all season long. One of the best backs in the SEC when healthy. Uh, he has not been available the last 2 weeks. We'll see what we see out of him this week if he is available to go against A&M. A couple other pieces there as well that you wonder about, but especially in the secondary, which has already been thin. You wonder if Zy Alexander or Andre Sam will be available to go at the corner and safety position, respectively. A lot of questions in the air there for the LSU team, and still a handful, like I said, for A&M. A couple of big pieces there that are up in the air. Realistically, here this is going to be, LSU facing an A&M defense. A&M has been, great defensively all year long. I've covered this A&M defense all year long. Especially against the run, they've been great. But LSU could run the football extremely, extremely well. The pass and when Jaden Daniels drops back to pass, he's been a rushing threat. If the first option or the second option aren't there, he is obviously going to be more than willing to take off and run. He's been the lead of that all year long. He leads the entire nation actually in rushing yards per carry average. So he's been more than willing to do that. And when healthy, Logan Diggs has looked extremely good behind that offensive line as a running back. He's been, like I said, one of the best backs in the SEC when he's been healthy. Probably just behind Cody Schrader actually, and that probably falls in that second spot pretty well in that role. Or maybe third, I guess, when Quayshawn Judkins as well is healthy, but he has struggled with that this year as well. So, but the LSU offense has not struggled by any means to run the football. They haven't struggled to pass. They haven't struggled at all in any facet of the game. Realistically, they've been great at doing really everything you can ask them to. Um, and they faced against, like I said, a great A&M defense here. I think probably second in the SEC to Alabama. I think they are even a touch better than what we've seen of Georgia. Of course, Georgia has peaked as of late, so there's questions there about maybe that or other. But regardless, A&M's defense has been great all year long. They're up. They're enjoying playing. Like I said, for Elijah Robinson, they've really come together here at the end of the season. It's going to be a tough matchup for LSU here, without a doubt. But frankly, I don't know that A&M has enough in the tank, even with everything, even with the coaching change, even with the pieces that are questionable for LSU. It's going to be a tough spot here. The line's big. I don't like the line being so big. It got bet up from 7.5 at open to I think it's 11 now. I don't really understand why it's been bet up so much. I think this game's going to be played close because of the inability for LSU to pull away from good teams like this, just because of how bad the defense has been. Max Johnson, of course, a question as well for A&M. Probably the biggest question. I don't think he will be able to go. It doesn't sound like. We'll see how that turns out. Of course, the A&M offensive line has been the key issue there. But A&M's thrown the football with at least a decent level of success when they can keep the quarterback upright, and of course that's what LSU struggled against is defending that pass game. They can defend the run with a decent amount of success. A&M's not going to be able to run the football, I don't think, particularly well this weekend. So it's going to be on whoever takes snaps at that quarterback position. We'll see on game day who ends up taking those reps, and who ends up throwing that football. Can they throw it with success against this LSU, depleted, more than likely LSU defensive secondary? Everybody else has so far this year. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't. So I don't see any reason why this game will not, remain close. Certainly. But truth be told, I just don't think A&M defensively, even as highly as I tout that unit, I don't think they can stop the LSU offensive attack, especially with them playing for a Jaden Daniels Heisman and a Malik Neighbors Blitnikoff Award. Both being on the line here. They've been almost unstoppable as a duo, plus Brian Thomas in there as well. It's been a great thing to watch as an LSU fan. You just wish that the defense had shown competence this year, to keep them in the title hunt. Wasn't the case, unfortunately, but it's been fun to watch those three go at it all year long. And it's going to be exciting to see it one more time. maybe two, depending on who plays in the bowl game and who doesn't. We'll see about that when that time comes. But at least this one final time, we'll get to see this unit go to battle together. So ultimately, though, I'm going to take LSU here. I think that A&M, as good as as good as the defense has been, and as depleted as I think the LSU defense will be, I just trust the LSU offense to outlast the A&M defense at the end of the day. And the A&M offense, I don't think will have just quite enough with the questions around it. So I'm going to take LSU here. I think it'll be a close game. I just don't think I don't think either team has the ability to pull away with this one. So I'm going to take LSU close. It's going to be a high-scoring affair as well. It's going to be a surprisingly high-scoring affair. Here's my final score. I'm going to take it 66 to 60 or to 59. Sorry, for the Tigers.
So you're going with a really big high-scoring game. I know I have mine, one for mine, but I don't think I have it that big. But before we get to mine, I'll ask Tyler what his thoughts are on this game.
Yeah, this game will be interesting because you talk about the A&M defense and how good it's been. I think the strength of the A&M defense, though, I think it relies in the run game. I think they've been excellent at stopping the run in mostly every game they've played, but they're not as clamped down on the big plays that I think LSU can offer in this game. And I think LSU, if they win this game, they'll be in a New Year's Six bowl. Should be at least. Actually, I don't know exactly where they're at in the playoff poll, but I think they're around that area. I could be completely wrong, but LSU has a lot to play for. I think this season kind of left a lot of sourness in some LSU fans' mouth and a lot of the national spotlight, just because I think them beating Alabama last year really upped the expectations for this team this year, and I think that with that, I think the LSU. A lot of questions were kind of left to, they'll figure it out. They figured it out last year, with the first year of Brian Kelly. And now, of course, Brian Kelly is, fighting here for not much to, play for that much, except for just a win over A&M. But, of course, now it's, the narrative of Brian Kelly can't win the biggest games of all time, even though he did last year with basically an LSU team that, he inherited. It wasn't his. Recruiting looks great for LSU. I think this is going to be a good weekend for that to improve because I do think they will win this game. I'm not going to go very much in depth because I think Blake hit on a lot of things that I wanted to say. So with that being said, I do think LSU puts up 50 as well. He had them in the 60s. I have in the 50s. 56 to 30. I don't think A&M is going to be able to score that much. But I do think LSU, they're going to find the big plays. They're going to find the explosive plays, and I think they're going to end their regular season on a bang.
So you're going with LSU. You both are going with LSU in this game. And when I looked at this line, 11 is too much, which is a bit of a spoiler ahead, but 11 is too much. This game is going to be competitive in my mind. I think you guys both bring up a lot of good points because there isn't really much said else about LSU other than they have, and arguably, in my opinion, I would say he is the best player this year in college football in Jaden Daniels. I've been saying this since that around that Ole Miss game. I think he's been the Heisman frontrunner since then. A lot of people still think it might be the winner of the Pac-12 championship game and their quarterback, but I think it's Daniels, and I think I don't know what else he has to prove. It's going to be his, and I think he's even going to show that this weekend because the LSU's offense is not going to stop. I get Texas A&M has a very good defense, but LSU's offense is not going to stop. The thing is, though, are they going to be able to get a stop against Texas A&M's offense? Because A&M's just got as much talent in their secondary as LSU does, if not more talent. A&M's wide receiving core, that's what I meant to say there, excuse me, is, they're uber talented too. A lot of rumors around them right now, I will say, moving forward. But, they're with a third-string quarterback. I believe they're still rolling with their third-string quarterback in this game and not Max Johnson due to his injury that he sustained. But, I just still think, like I said, that line's too big. And I don't know. LSU just hasn't changed at all this year. They've been a team that's gonna score points on you, but 50 might not be enough. 45 might not be enough. Heck, maybe one game 60 might not be even enough. You never know what can happen. But I don't know. I get a feeling about this game, and the line in this game even makes me have a greater feeling about this game. And with that being said, I'm going to go with the upset in this one, and I'm going to pencil this in as my upset of the week with that as well in this ball game. I'm going to go with Texas A&M over LSU. Very high scoring game. 52-48 is the final that I am predicting in this ball game. Very entertaining game. Has a chance to be the best game this weekend. Very good game as I said, I think it's going to be, but I'm penciling in plus 11 underdog. Texas A&M will be my upset of the week this week with that. So that, wraps up our thoughts about our second game that we're going to go in depth with. So let's go with some more quick hitters. 4 quick hitters. We're sticking down in the Louisiana area. The Battle of the Bayou this weekend. Louisiana Monroe takes on Louisiana. 12-point favorites for Louisiana, 3 o'clock game. Blake, what are we thinking about this game, the Battle on the Bayou?
Yeah, really quickly, I just want to say, since you mentioned that your upset is locked in there, I locked in my upset with the last episode. I just want to throw that out there. The Boston College over Miami is my upset of the week. Just to throw that out there since you mentioned it just briefly there. But jump back into this game, UL Lafayette versus ULM. Fun game there. ULM well out of eligibility. They have yet to win a conference game this year, even actually. A tough season there for the Warhawks. And Lafayette will play for bowl eligibility here. Day more so, needing this one. I will take the Raging Cajuns hesitantly, certainly. It's a big line here at 12 for Lafayette. I don't think they're going to cover that by any means. I think the Warhawks will give them all they can handle here, even though it's been a rough season for them. Even though the Raging Cajuns, as I said, are playing for bowl life here. Just the nature of rivalry week, I think, will come through. But I'll take the Raging Cajuns to win, and I'll take the Warhawks to cover this one.
So you're going to go with the cover there from Louisiana Monroe, but we're going with the Raging Cajuns, excuse me. Tyler, what is your pick for this ball game?
Yeah, Blake, you talked about ULM without a conference win. I think this is actually going to be a bit of a weird one, though. I think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think we're going to see teens, and when it comes to that, I think any team can win any kind of football game if it's that low-scoring. And I'm going to take the upset. I'm going to take ULM on the road. They're 12-point dogs. I think it's the perfect recipe. UL sitting there at 5-6. They just need to. They're 12-point favorites at home. They just need to win, and they'll be bowl eligible. And I think those are the most dangerous games, especially on rivalry week, because when your rival has the chance to not send you somewhere to end your season, they have a lot to play for there too. So I'm gonna go ULM 12-point dogs on the road. Gonna go and take them to win.
So you're going with Louisiana Monroe, the upset in this ball game. I'm going to go Louisiana in this ball game. It's a very, it's a rivalry game as mentioned. Anything can happen in rivalry games, but ULM has just been, they've had a tough season this year. So I'm going to roll with the Raging Cajuns, and I'm going to even pick them to cover in this ball game. That's right, I said it. I'm going with Louisiana in this one over ULM and them to cover. Now to another one, the battle for the Gons Trophy. I think I said that right, Tyler. You'll definitely correct me when we get to you. But Navy traveling to SMU. SMU can lock up a spot in the American Championship game. I know all three of us have been pretty up there with SMU as of recent, but SMU can lock up a spot in the American Championship if they win this weekend. 18-point favorites. Do we think that they take care of business and buy enough this weekend, Blake?
Yeah, really impressed with Rhett Lashley's unit here the last couple of years. Questioned that hire when it happened. But he's impressed, certainly, and especially this year, they've impressed pretty well. Played a great game against Memphis last week, came out on top, has positioned themselves in a spot to make the AAC title game and to potentially play for a New Year's Six Bowl. We'll see how that goes in the next couple of weeks here. They got to make it through this one first, and I'll tell you what, I think they will. Navy just has struggled all year long. They don't have quite the offense I think they need here to hang with SMU. Sorry, I'm going to take the Ponies here. The great old Pony Express as it used to be once upon a time. Give me SMU, probably pretty sizable here. I think they're going to cover this line.
So you're going with that one for the ponies in this one. Tyler, I'll turn it over to you. What are you thinking for this game?
Yeah, I agree. I've been on SMU for quite a while now. One of my favorite quarterbacks in the entire country, Preston Stone, finally gets the job there after Tanner Mordecai ends up transferring out. Preston Stone's done a great job. That offense has not faltered in any way. They're obviously sitting. They just need to win and they'll be in essentially. So yeah, it should be an interesting game. I think Navy, I think they can cover this one, but I am going to take SMU to cover the points as well. I just think SMU is going to be a little bit too tough there.
So you're going with SMU in this one. I'm going to go SMU as well. I'm going to roll with the ponies in this ball game. I'm going to pick them to cover 2 in this ball game, rolling with SMU. So now we're going to travel a little bit. We've been around the Texas and Louisiana with this one. We're going to go up north to a couple games in the Big Ten West. The first one that we're going to talk about, the Land of Lincoln Trophy is on the line in this one. Northwestern travels to Illinois. Both of these teams, I believe, are sitting at 6-5, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they're both bowl eligible, but Northwestern, with a win, surprisingly enough, they can lock up second place in the Big Ten West this year. But Blake, what are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, really interesting spot here. Really impressed as we talked about in the show earlier this week about how Northwestern been impressive this year without a doubt. Illinois with the home field advantage here and with the favoritism even over the home field, a little extra there as well. I think Vegas favors Illinois in this game just outright as a team. Not sure I agree with that. At most, I would give this game a home field advantage for Illinois. I think that they're overshooting this one a little bit. But truthfully, I don't think it matters. I'm going to take Northwestern to win this game outright, to obviously beat the spread here with Illinois being favored. So I'm going to take Northwestern outright here at the +6 to win this one. Move to 7-5 on the season, just to finish off what's been a really impressive season for Braun, and that unit here and his interim season and him, going forward as the head football coach there.
So you're going with Northwestern in this one. I did lie there. Illinois is 5-6. Northwestern is 6-5. Surprisingly got the bowl eligibility this year. But Tyler, what are you thinking about this game?
Yeah, I think this is a year where we all expected Northwestern to be the bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten West, which is a special type of bad, but they are not. They have been probably one of the biggest surprises in the entire country this year. Great job by the interim coaching staff there. Really pulled around what was a horrific situation, and I do think it will continue. I'm going to take them to win and cover on the road. I do think they're going to stop Illinois from getting to bowl eligibility, and I think Northwestern is going to enjoy a nice bowl game.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you guys here as well. I think that Northwestern, like I said, with a win in this one, they can lock up second place in the Big Ten West, and they're just a team that's been playing, very inspired this year after all that happened in their offseason and leading up to this year. But, just, hats off to them, and I think that they end up winning the Land of Lincoln Trophy, and I'm going to go with Northwestern in this one as well. But now to another game between 6-5 and 5-6 teams in the Big Ten West. Battle for Paul Bunyan's axe. Wisconsin travels to Minnesota. The Badgers have dominated this rivalry. Minnesota battling for bowl eligibility in this ball game. This one's tighter due to Vegas standards, but Blake, who are we thinking is taking Paul Bunyan's axe this year?
Yeah, fun, another one that's we're gonna send the Big Ten West out in style here with this one. A game that like you mentioned, Cade, when we talked about the Iowa Nebraska game in the last episode, might set offenses back 50 years. This one has the same potential, certainly. Just not very talented offenses here by any means. I have a chance here to nail Minnesota on the head for my preseason predictions. I had them at 5-7 in the preseason. Potential to follow that up, or to follow that through here and finish it off. But truth be told, I am going to actually ride with them here to win this game. I'm going to go against my preseason predictions. I'm going to take them to actually make bowl eligibility they've looked a little better than I thought they would, truth be told. So I'm going to take Minnesota to win this game. Win it, I think, at home, actually. So give me the Gophers here to take this one.
So
And obviously, they will cover this one as well.
yes, so you're gonna go with Minnesota in this one. Tyler will ask you, who do we think's taking Paul Bunyan's axe this year?
Um, I have no idea. I think this is going to be a spot for PJ Fleck where he kind of needs this one. I mean, he will not get fired at Minnesota. I think he, like some other coaches in the country that are having some job security issues, I think he was just too good too early, and I think that what's happening now is just kind of what Minnesota is as a program. And with that being said, I think this is going to be when that Luke Fickle. They don't need it, but I do think that this would be a huge win for that program. They're going on the road. They've done it before. They've knocked out Minnesota and good competition beforehand. With Minnesota has a lot to play for here. I think this is a Wisconsin win. I think Wisconsin kind of ran out of gas, but I think that this is a game that they're going to play up for. They are favorites on the road here too, so I think it's going to be low scoring. It's going to be ugly, but I'm going to take Wisconsin to win, and obviously I'm going to take them to cover 2 points.
So you're gonna go with Wisconsin this one, and they got Mordecai back. Funny enough, it seemed like a lot of talk around him was that he was going to be out for the season, but I believe they got him back. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Wisconsin in this ball game. And obviously, I'm going to pick them to cover with it only being a 2-point spread. I think they're going to continue to dominate this rivalry and, keep moving forward. And speaking of rivalries and certain domination at certain venues, we got to talk about this one, and we got to go in depth with this one just because of how much it means to both of these programs and how much interesting aura is around this game, and specifically where this game is being played this year. Alabama, the Iron Bowl, traveling to Auburn this year, 3:30 CBS, as it should be, as God intended it to be. Alabama, big favorites. Alabama's rolling right now. All three of us have them as one of the best teams in the country. Auburn just lost to New Mexico State at home and paid them over $1.5 million to do so. So everything is pointing in Alabama in this game, but Jordan Hare is a special place. They've only played in this venue 14 times all time due to them playing in Legion Field in the past, but it's 7-7 all time between the two teams. It always seems like it's a close game in Jordan Hare, but I will ask you first, Blake. What is your analysis on this game? How are we feeling about this year's Iron Bowl?
Yeah, rack it up. I'm gonna spoil my pick real quick here early. I'm gonna rack it up to a quick 7-8 for Auburn here. I think Alabama's gonna dominate this game, and let me tell you why here. Alabama is peaking at the perfect time. They have figured out really everything they need to offensively. I think that's shown the past several weeks. The whole unit there has kind of been forming around Jalen Milroe at the quarterback position all year long. And slowly but surely they've meshed him in and they figured out a way, as an entire staff and unit, both on and off the field there, to work his ability into the game plan and work him in, effectively. Let him use his arm talent downfield. Let him use his legs when nothing's available. Just make it an efficient and effective offense, which is what it wasn't early in the season. That's why they struggled against Texas. That's why they lost that game and why it looked ugly on the field at the time. They didn't know how to use they didn't know how to use Milroe at an effective level and at an efficient level, and that's where they struggled at. Defensively, things have been great all year long. You point to that Texas game again as being a threat or as being questionable. It's hard to chalk that up being too bad for the Alabama defense just because of how much they were on the field. And, their offense kept putting the football back in the hands of Texas, so they got worn down pretty consistently over that game. With an offense that now can sustain drives and make things happen. That defense is just as stout as any unit in the country, and I would argue might be the best unit in the country at this exact moment in time. The defensive front has been excellent there. They're not going to allow, I don't think, anybody to run the football on them. I don't think it matters who you put up against them. I don't think anyone's running the football with with a high level of efficiency on Alabama. Um, in the secondary there, you've got talent really everywhere. If they click on any given day, then you can't throw the football. It's just going to depend on whether they click or not that day. And even if they don't, you're not going to throw the ball for 500 yards or anything on them. Even LSU, the best offense in the country, with the best threats all over the field, couldn't do that against Alabama. So you're not going to throw the ball all over this team either. It's the best defense, I think, by by a decent margin that we have in America right now. And Auburn, we just saw get manhandled by New Mexico State at home at Jordan Hare, where this game will be played. Obviously, there's magic that happens at Jordan Hare, fairly frequently, especially in October with this game, with the Iron Bowl. We've seen some great moments. Of course, everyone, knows the kick six is the big one. A great moment in the history of this game. I don't even think a miracle like that could save Auburn here. Frankly, I think you would need a complete and utter just disaster to happen for Alabama. I think it would take a complete collapse to a level that I don't know that we've ever seen in college football for them to lose this game with the way they're peaking, with the way Auburn is sliding at this point. I don't think this game's going to be close, frankly. That's why I spoiled my pick early. I just think Auburn. I think the tank is fully empty there. I think that showed last week. They blow out Arkansas a couple of weeks ago, just to get run at home by that New Mexico State team, to get keeled, as we'll say. It's not a good spot. So I'm going to take Alabama to win this one. Pretty huge. I'm going to take it 48-9 actually for the Tide here. I just don't think Auburn's got what it takes here to keep this game even remotely close, unfortunately.
So you're going with the Tide, and you're going with the Tide rolling in this ball game. Tyler will ask you now, do we think the Tide are rolling over the Tigers this weekend?
Unfortunately, yeah. I think this game is like Blake. I think it'll be a blowout. Mine isn't as big, but I think it's more convincing. I just do not see a way that Auburn wins outside of some just horrific Alabama play. We're needing, I don't know if Alabama versus USF is bad enough for Auburn to have a chance here. Auburn offensively just not very good. Just have not been able to really figure out anything, consistently. I think, like Blake said, I think they ran out of gas. I think they ran out of gas pretty long time ago. Just being on your home field, the week before Alabama and getting just absolutely ran through by New Mexico State, which, to be fair, New Mexico State, been a very good team this year. But that doesn't, you're 25-point favorites at home, and you lose the way you do. I'm not even going to go into it further. I don't see a way Auburn pulls it off. I don't think it's possible. Obviously, I could be really wrong on, our, Sunday or Monday preview or recap, I should say. But yeah, I'm going to take Alabama 42-3. I think they're one of the hottest teams in the country. I think Auburn might be one of the coldest teams in all of Power 5 right now. 42-3, Alabama wins. Don't think it'll be close. Don't think it'll be a fun game to even watch. So, which is unfortunate to say about this game, but hopefully Blake and I are wrong.
Well, I'll also say hopefully I'm wrong about this one too, because I got it the same exact way, guys. I just, as mentioned, Alabama's my number 2 in my power ratings for a reason, because I think they're playing like the number 2 team in the nation right now. The talent on this roster is just, it's insane. And Alabama started to use that talent. It took them a while because a lot of that talent hadn't really played in big college football games beforehand in the early stages of the season, but they finally got Alabama did not get knocked down when they could have been this year. And it really kind of stems back to that Ole Miss game. And since then, you don't want to spark a team like that. You want to spark a team with as much talent as Alabama has this year, because they were staring down, the face of a 12-gauge shotgun, and they took the gun and spun it around on their opponents this year. You don't want to do that to a bull like Alabama is, to a team that's led by a Nick Saban. period. And they've turned around. They've had a fantastic year this year. And, I think whoever wins that Georgia versus them game, I know I said a couple weeks ago, I said the Big Ten East winner would likely be my favorite for the national title. It's Bama or it's Georgia. Whoever wins that ball game is in my opinion, should deservedly be in the college football playoff because you're the SEC champion. It's the toughest conference in football for a reason. They would be my favorite to win it all this year. I think that they found something. It's the shot plays. They still haven't been able to really run the football this year, but Auburn is coming off of probably the most embarrassing, I would say, SEC loss since probably, sorry about this one, Blake, LSU and Troy that I can really think about. You two can probably think about a couple other ones that could pop in your mind. Maybe I think Georgia Southern or somebody over Tennessee a couple years ago, but something like that. There's a couple of them in there, but, they lost to New Mexico State. Paid him $1.5 million and lost to him at home, and didn't just lose to him at home, got absolutely embarrassed at home, did Auburn. And then you got to turn around and get your guys up to go in the Iron Bowl against a team that's probably the hottest team in college football right now. It doesn't bode well for Auburn. I think it will for the first, maybe 20 minutes, of the ball game. I think they keep it competitive. And then Alabama just does what they've done all year, and they come out and they smack you right in the mouth. And that's what they've done all year, and I don't see that changing in this ballgame. I got Bama covering. I got Bama big in this ballgame. 45-17. Tide is going to be rolling, and we'll keep it in the SEC with another SEC rivalry. We just kind of talked about Tennessee. Another quick hitter. That's our third of our really in-depth games. We're back to our quick hitters. Vandy taking on Tennessee. Tennessee big favorites this weekend on the SEC Network, 3:30. Blake, how are we thinking about this game?
Yeah, they're those big favorites for a reason here. Vanderbilt, one of my most disappointing teams this year. I thought they would at least fight for bowl eligibility. They are not close to it. This team has looked, nothing short of abysmal for the last 9 weeks, 10 or 9 games they've played. The last time they were on the football field, they got absolutely obliterated by South Carolina, who we know has been, shaky at best. And they were never even close to end that game. I think it was 47-6 was the final score. They got just routed. The last close game they played, as crazy as to say, was against Georgia, where they were in that game until, maybe you could say halftime. If you want to even think they were in that game at that point, it's questionable to say. Even then, though, that game was in, I think, mid-November. They haven't really been in a football game since then. So it's been weeks since they've been competent. You hate to see it for Vanderbilt, especially with what they showed last year, some potential. So I'm going to roll with Tennessee here. It's a massive line. It's one that you wonder, can a team cover it? I think they can. I just think Vanderbilt's been that bad, frankly, even with Tennessee going the wrong way. I'm going to take Tennessee to win this game with, some pretty high ease, and I'm going to take them to cover here on a, 27-point line, I believe. So, yeah, give me Tennessee to win and cover.
So you're going Tennessee winning and big in this ball game. Tyler, I'll ask you now, do we think that Tennessee covers in this ball game is really the main question.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Tennessee win. No need to break it further down than that. I do think that this game will be close to the line. I don't think it'll be covered by Vandy, though. I do think Tennessee will cover it, but I do think it will be close to the line. I actually have it 33-0. That's the score I had, so just 6 points off there. But yeah, Tennessee wins this game easily. Can Vandy make it any bit interesting? Who knows?
Yeah. I'm going to go same deal here. Tennessee win and big, 2 covered in this ball game. Not much more I have to say, but a rivalry this weekend of importance because a team with a little bit of help can make a conference championship game, and that's Appalachian State. They host Georgia Southern in the Deeper Than Hate rivalry this weekend. App State's favorites. Do we think that the Mountaineers can keep their Sun Belt title hopes alive this weekend, Blake?
Yeah, tell you what, obviously I really like what the Mountaineers have always offered here with App State. Yeah, I think Boone's a great place. I think Boone's a great place for them to play in. It's a tough place for opponents to go into, especially with the game on or with a potential with like you said the chance of a Sun Belt title berth on the line. It's going to be a tough game for anybody to go into, especially in a rivalry game with Georgia Southern. You like you like what Boone's going to bring to the table here. I'm going to take App State to win this game. I think it's going to be a good game that we're going to witness here. But I think that I trust the Mountaineers a little bit to pull this game out here. So I'm going to take App State to win. 8.5 is a big line. I wonder about it. And I'm going to take at least Georgia State, sorry, not Georgia State, Georgia Southern to cover here that 8.5. But I'm going to take App State again to win.
So you're going App State to win, but Georgia Southern to cover. Tyler, I'll ask you now. Who do we think is pulling this one out?
So I think this is a big spot for App State because they have a ton to play for, and they also just came off of, it wasn't a home game, but it kind of was a Super Bowl-esque game like they had against James Madison, able to pull that one out. And I do think that with that being said, I think Georgia Southern is going to go into Boone, and I think they are going to take this one. I think they're going to snatch a potential Sun Belt Conference Championship game berth away from App State, and I think we'll be seeing, James Madison and Coastal Carolina go at it in the, I guess it wouldn't be James Madison, so I don't know exactly how that would play out. So thanks, NCAA, but, I do think Georgia Southern will win this game. I think App State has a lot to play for here. And I think that last week was a very up game for them, and I think it could be a potential down spot here.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna go with App State in this game, and I'm gonna go App State to cover. Funny enough, in this game, but I'm gonna roll with the Mountaineers in this one. I think they're just gonna be up to play this weekend. But speaking of the mountains, we'll go out now to the Rocky Mountains. The Rumble in the Rockies this weekend. Colorado, Deion's bunch traveling to take on Utah. Utah just got embarrassed by Arizona last weekend, but they're still favored by 22 this weekend. How do we think this one's playing out, Blake?
Not a good spot for Colorado, frankly. They have been not a good football team for really all year. Truthfully, they won a couple of those games early against teams that have not been particularly great. They got hyped up for that reason. Never was really on that train, and I think that has shown why none of us were really on that train. And I think we've all been proven pretty right for that one. Things have come apart, especially recently. It almost looks as if that team has kind of quit for the season. I think it's safe to say, you don't get beat by Washington State like they did without having, kind of given up on the season as a unit. So, not a whole lot of hope for Colorado here. Bowl eligibility obviously not on the line. They are out of that question or out of that conversation. So I'm gonna take the Utes to win this game here without a doubt. I'm gonna take them to cover this one as well. I don't think it's gonna be a particularly close game. I don't think that the Colorado's really trying particularly hard at this point. 22.5 or 22 points, a big line. Obviously, I just don't think it's gonna matter. I think Utah will roll, even if they have stumbled and maybe even run out of gas last week. I don't think it matters at this point. So I'm going to take the Utes to win this one and cover that 22-point spread.
So you're going with Utah big in this one. Tyler, I'll ask you, what are you thinking about this game?
Yeah, I think you hit the head there. I think Colorado not in a good spot, even though Utah just got blown out. I do think Utah will win this one. I'm going to take that. But I do think Colorado will cover only because I'm not so sure how much gas Utah has. If they have just an eighth of a tank, they will cover. But if they're completely out, this game could be, I don't think it'll be close, but I don't think Utah will have that pull-away ability. I don't really think Utah has had crazy pull-away ability all year. So I do think this is a horrific matchup for Colorado just based off the physicality. But I'm going to take Utah to win, but I do think Colorado will cover 22 points.
So you're going with Utah, Colorado to cover. I'm going to agree with Blake in this one. I'm going to go Utah to cover in this ball game. I just think that the Utes are a better football team, and they are a nightmare of a matchup for Colorado. So that's why I'm going to go Utah. Utah might honestly win that game 24-0 and still cover in this ball game, but that's what I'm going to roll with. Now we're going to go back to the East to set up our next game. Back out East in this one, Virginia and Virginia Tech, the Commonwealth Cup. Due to some things that have happened in the past with Virginia's program last year, this is the first time this game is being played in 2 years. Vatech is a favorite in this ball game, but Blake, do we think that the Hokies are going to come out in this one? And I believe they're vying for bowl eligibility in this ball game as well.
Yeah, crazy spot here. Obviously there was, the tragic situation around Virginia last year that kept this game from being played, and understandably so. It's hard to, you can't really put a team on the field after what happened there. Just so unfortunate. But we come back to this game this year now. Virginia will be obviously playing with that on their mind. Virginia Tech obviously playing with a lot to play for in the football season. Or Virginia Tech, I should say, playing with a lot on the line this season still. So a fun spot, a tough spot for everything, and it'll be I think you're seeing an emotional spot here for a lot of this, but at the end of the day, I think Virginia Tech, although not a great football team by any means, I think they're going to be just good enough to pull this game out over what has been an all over the place Virginia team this year. You've seen them struggle for most of the part, but they show up in some crucial spots. I don't think this will be one of the weekends, though. I'm going to take Virginia Tech to win this game. I think it'll stay close. I think, at only a 3-point line, I think I'm going to take Virginia to cover still, though. At home, tough spot to say. I'm going to take them to cover on a low line, but I'll take Virginia Tech to win, but Virginia to cover that low line.
So you're going to go with that one. Interesting that you pick them to cover there, so you're going to go with the Hokies in this one. Tyler, I'll turn it over to you. What are you thinking for the Commonwealth Cup?
So, yeah, you hit on it. Very hard situation last year. Didn't get to play the game for, obviously, the unfortunate reasons that happened. But you also said it was an emotion game. I think there's going to be a lot of emotions game. I don't think there's any way in hell that Virginia's going to lose this game. I think they're going to be playing unbelievably hard. And Virginia Tech, they're going to give it right back to them, but I don't think Virginia is going to allow themselves to lose the game. They're just going to have to make Virginia Tech win, just straight up beat them. And I don't think Virginia Tech is a team that has the total overall talent. When we're talking about the two Virginia schools, obviously made the, Brent Pry at Virginia Tech and Tony Elliott in the same cycle. I'm not going to say bad hires because, who knows? They could turn it around. Both teams, I don't think this is the year they were kind of looking for. But I think when teams are like this together, I think, so much talent-wise, I think that, emotions can kind of overtake and win games at some point. So I'm going to go Virginia to win. I think they do cover. Going to be a big spot for them. Going to be rooting for them, honestly. Kind of hard not to. So, Virginia win, Virginia covers, and hopefully it'll be a pretty good story.
I'm going to go with Virginia in this one. And, obviously it would be a great story, but I also think Virginia's the better team in this game. Virginia's played pretty well this year in the ACC. They've had a couple games where they've scared a couple teams, Miami and Louisville, to be some, and they even upset North Carolina this year. That team has been, playing probably a lot better than it should have been playing this year, and I think that they're going to get the job done in front of their home crowd over Vatech. Give me the Cavaliers in this ball game. I'm going to take Virginia in that one, but it sets up an ACC team that has really, they're locked in the ACC champ game. Obviously, that game is locked between this team and Louisville, but Florida State traveling to the Swamp this weekend, 7 o'clock game, Sunshine Showdown. This one's been very, very interesting when you look at everybody overall because Florida State is playing without starting quarterback, Jordan Travis, but a lot of people also don't realize Florida is without Graham Mertz in this ball game too. Mertz got hurt last weekend. He is not going to be active this weekend, so a battle of the backup quarterbacks in the Swamp. Florida State, everything to play for, everything's on the line in this ball game. They can't slip up. They gotta win out, and this is one of the two that they gotta win out with. And Blake, I'll ask you first. Seminoles, tough spot this weekend. Do we think that they can grind it out over Florida in the rivalry game?
Yeah, Rodemaker versus Brown here, the battle of the backups, as you said. Crazy spot for both these teams. Who would have thought last week that we would have said we're playing, a battle of backup quarterbacks here because of some really unfortunate injuries. The gruesome one that we saw to Jordan Travis there for FSU, and we didn't see obviously we saw the play that we believe Graham Mertz went down on, but you didn't see quite the gruesome injury that you did there, but still brutal hit that he took that ended up fracturing his collarbone. On both sides, actually, he took that brutal hit that knocked him out for the rest of the season. And maybe for his college career, who knows? We'll see what comes of that. But I think if you told someone a week ago that this is going to be a battle of backups, like I said, no one would have really believed you there. But it opens up a whole new facet of the game because I think if you looked at this game last week with the normal matchup, Travis v. Mertz, I don't think you question really much at all that this is Florida State's game to lose. But the battle of backups can open that up a little bit. You've got at least a little more experience there in Rodemaker with FSU. He's played a little more than Brown has. Brown being a redshirt freshman, not the highest of recruits of all time by any means, but still, a fairly decent one. He was a top 50 quarterback in his own class. He's been around that program for a little over a year now, so he's at least familiar with the system. He's not going to be completely lost out there by any means. But I do think that ultimately that Florida is going to, go into this game with a QB disadvantage. Rodemaker having that extra experience there, with just certain spots over the year where they've just been kind of running teams out of the stadium and getting him opportunities is going to help them a lot here. Brown is going to be pretty fresh in this one. It's going to be a tough spot for him. He played his guts out against Mizzou. Certainly, it just wasn't enough in that one. Obviously, Mizzou went down and scored at the end to win that game. Um, everything on here, obviously, as you said, Florida has to win this game to make a bowl game. They had to pull an upset regardless, in these last three games to make it in. And truth be told, I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think FSU, with everything to play for the playoff, they're going to the ACC title game. We know they can still make the playoff. They can still realistically, I think, contend for probably not the title overall, but I think they could easily make the national title game. I don't think there's a clear number two team in the country right now. Um, I think anybody could easily make that national title game to play for it at least. And if you make it there, anything can obviously happen over the span of 60 minutes. So everything to play for Florida State, bowl eligibility only to play for Florida, which is obviously a big deal, but I just don't think they got it in them. The defense there has been suspect at best all season long. The run game, they can at least kind of key in on that at times, which is what Florida State I think is going to try to lean on it. Early in this game, we'll see if they can handle it. If they can't, then they will get run over. Frankly, if Florida doesn't handle the run game, Florida State will roll through them. And even if Florida does handle the run game, they're gonna have to find a way to stop, two 6 foot, 3 6 foot plus, 6'3" plus receivers out wide, plus Jaheim Bell at tight end. And I don't think they have the secondary to match up with that. So at the end of the day here, uh, I think we're going to see a tough fought game for at least a half. I think Florida's going to try to fight this one out for a while, but I don't think it's going to matter. I'm going to take Florida State to win this game, and I'm going to take Florida State to cover this one as well. Only a 6.5 point line. I think they're going to find a way to come out of this in the second half and pull away with this one. So, give me the Noles to win and to cover and to keep themselves alive in the playoff picture.
So you're going to go with Florida State in this ball game. Tyler, I'll ask you, what is your prediction for this Sunshine Showdown this year?
Yeah, this game should be interesting. I think, I don't know if I've talked about it on the the Wednesday show that it's already out. So I don't know if I talked about it there, but I think this is the perfect. Um, it's unfortunate that what happened to Jordan Travis, but like to have a backup come in, it's probably the best case scenario because if everything fails, Blake hit on it. You have massive weapons who can just go up and win one-on-ones. And I think that, Florida State was already a team that already relied on the deep ball. I don't think you're going to see anything change about them. They're not the best running game. They're not really, negative efficiency-wise, but they're not really positive. They don't, they run the ball kind of just when they do. They don't, they don't rely on the run game. They rely on the pass game. And I think this is probably like best case scenario for a backup quarterback to come in just because of what is around Tate Rodemaker. And when it comes to Florida, I think we're already kind of, I don't think we're talking about how bad the weapons are, but I think that they could be better in that department. Kind of go back to that last year with Anthony Richardson. And, now, Graham Mertz, I don't know if it's because of Graham Mertz or because of, the offensive line maybe, or how much confidence, Billy Napier has in his offense. But, Graham Mertz's numbers look fantastic, but he doesn't really throw the ball down the field. So I really don't think much of Florida's offense is going to change either. I think we're going to see the same product that we've had all year, just with two different guys, calling shots. And, if Graham Mertz were in this game against Tate Rodemaker, Graham Mertz been in college football for, a decent amount of time. Tate Rodemaker would be making his, I believe it's his first start. I don't know if he started, in the previous years, but, just not very much game time. It would be a lot different, but I think with everything compounded on itself, I think Florida State is still in a good spot here. They've won, close games all year while looking good at doing it. They've done what they needed to do. And like I said in the recap show, a 13-0 Florida State team gets in the playoff, and everyone should know that. I don't think everyone does know that. They will get in every scenario possible. But with that being said, I think Florida has a lot to play here, get to bowl eligibility. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I think it's going to be a hellacious environment for Florida State and Rodemaker to make his first start. But I think that, I think that coaching staff there in Florida State, I think they're going to be able to get it done. I think they're going to be able to get out of the swamp with a win. It's not like they're having to travel far. They have to deal with that Florida weather too. Maybe not as gross as it is down in the swamp, but they're there as well. I'm going to go 27-19. I think it will be a close game all the way down to the end, but I do think Florida State, that talent is just going to end up winning out at the end.
I mean, Florida State, their weapons on the outside are absolutely fantastic this year. And that's been a lot of the reason why they've been successful. Obviously, I don't think their defense is, anything too great. Obviously, they haven't really had to face, outside of LSU in week 1, mind you, a team that's had an electrifying offense this year. When you look at it overall, I think when you look at it, the second best offense that they might have had to face this year is probably Miami. They obviously, when it mattered the most, Miami didn't have the quarterback that they were rolling with when that offense was being as electric as it was. When it mattered the most down the stretch in what would have been a game-tying drive in that ball game. But Florida, without Mertz in this game, I think it's a tough situation. Florida State without Travis, same deal. It's going to be a very interesting game because anything can happen with a backup quarterback in the ball game. You never know what you're going to get when you see a backup quarterback because they could come out and they could be like 2014 Ohio State, or they could come out and they could, lay a goose egg. And I think that's what Florida State's trying to look right now with Rodemaker is, you're going to be our Cardell Jones. You're going to help us, get over the hump, go undefeated, and reach the college football playoff because anything can happen from that point out. And, Blake said it. Anything can happen from that point out for Florida State. If you would ask me if Mertz was healthy and Travis was healthy, I think that this game would be competitive, but I would go Florida State. Probably to cover, I would say, in that sense. But, it's a different situation where you don't know what you're going to go into. A lot of people are picking Florida this weekend. Florida seems to be the good pick because they're trying to become bowl eligible. Billy Napier is trying to really kind of shed some of those demons. The big game Billy narrative that has started to come over him with this game. It's a big spot for Florida. It's a big spot for Florida State because they got a national championship to play for at this point. And I just think that this team, Florida State, I just think that they have enough in this ball game. As mentioned, their game plan has been Jordan Travis running out of the pocket and throwing up the deep ball or hitting somebody over the middle on a post. That seems to be the bread and butter of their offense. I don't think that's going to change. Maybe the scrambling in that sense. The run game might not be as much in this ball game, but I don't really think it's going to matter in this game. I just think that Florida State has mentioned the talent's going to be there. I think Florida's going to keep this close. I think this is going to be a very competitive game throughout, but I'm going to go Florida State by a field goal. I'm going to take Florida to cover, but I think the Seminoles just have enough. They're playing for too much at this point to really just let down that much, but I'm going to go Florida State 27-24 in this one over Florida in the Sunshine Showdown. And speaking of Sunshine, we're now back. That was our fourth in-depth game. We're going to go to four more really quick hitters. We're going to go out west. Speaking of Sunshine, we're going to go to the desert, the duel in the desert. Arizona at Arizona State. Blake, I know you're high on the Wildcats in this ball game. Do we think that they're rolling to a 9-3 regular season record?
Yeah, all over Arizona here. I like Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State too. I liked him going in this year. I didn't like the roster he had in place. That kind of came to fruition as well. They just don't have the guys that they need yet. I trust him to get those there over time. They're just not there yet though, and for that reason, I think that the season will wrap up as we've seen play out so far. Give me Arizona to win this game, and at 10.5, give me them to cover it as well.
So you're going to go with the Wildcats in the duel of the desert? Tyler, I'll ask you, what are you thinking for this one?
Yeah, I'm also going to go Arizona win and cover. I just don't think Arizona State has the they just don't really have the ample amount of players that they actually need. We've heard Dillingham after games, trying to get kids to try out for, the football program. Just not a great spot there. But I actually do think this game will be closer than what people think. Arizona State has played up to some competition. In specific scenarios, so should be a fun game. Always has been one of my favorite rivalry games. Honestly, I think this game has been fantastic. Had some great outings before, but Arizona wins. Arizona covers. Think they're too hot. I think they're too good right now.
I am going to agree with you both in this one. I'm going to go Arizona win, Arizona cover. Like you said, I just think they're too hot right now. They're playing like a really good ball club. Not much is really taking them down. They still got, Pac-12 title hopes to play for. So I'm going to go with the Wildcats in this one. But sticking out in the Pac-12, Washington takes on Washington State in the Apple Cup in this game. Washington, despite all odds, they have, sitting here at 11-0. They locked themselves in a position to go to the Pac-12 title game to face either Arizona or Oregon, both teams of which they beat by a combined 10 points. But Apple Cup this weekend, Blake, what are you thinking? Do we think the Huskies are rolling to an undefeated regular season?
I've put everything I've got against Washington the last couple of weeks. I keep thinking they're running out of gas, and I don't think they're going to run out of it this week. At this point, they keep surviving and advancing every week, and I think that they've got enough gas in the tank to at least make it through an undefeated regular season here. I think the Huskies are going to go 12-0 here, finish season strong against Washington State, and they're going to roll into the Big 12 title game, or the Big 12, sorry, the Pac-12 title game against whoever they may face there. We'll see how it plays out this weekend. But give me the Huskies to win. And it's a bigger line. I think Washington State can keep it close for about a half, and I think that half football will be enough for them to at least keep it in cover range. So give me Washington to win, but give me the Cougs to cover.
Tyler, I'll ask you now: do we think that Washington continues to roll this weekend?
No, actually, I think this is a really good matchup for Washington State. They're going to pass the ball, and Washington, they just defensively not there as an elite, as really even a good unit. They are below average in a ton of defensive statistics, And I think Washington State offensively, we've seen what they can do in some other games in the previous, previous part of the year. But they did kind of they fell off a cliff. But I think they'll figure it out. I think that I'm not going to pick them to win. Don't get me. Don't get confused with that. I do think Washington wins. I agree with Blake though. I think they will cover this game. I think that the offense is going to be good enough. But yeah, I think this game could be sneaky close. Wouldn't be shocked if it was a one-score game in the fourth quarter or maybe at halftime. But yeah, Washington just eventually they're going to run this team at some point. But I don't think it'll be enough to cover. I think the Cougars will stay in this one.
So you're once again going with that, and this one, interesting enough, I'm gonna pick Washington in this one. I think they're gonna get the victory, but I do agree. I feel like Washington State just kind of isn't the best matchup for Washington this weekend, because of the past game, and in that sense, I think that Washington does win, but I do think the Cougs are gonna cover. They're gonna keep it close in the Apple Cup. Good news for that rivalry is they have, with Washington moving to the Big Ten and whatever the future may hold for Washington State, they have continued that rivalry. They are going to continue it the next handful of years with the scheduling that at least to, I believe, 2027 they've got a mark. So good on those two teams to keep the rivalry going. But now to what might be the last game ever on the Pac-12 network, and it's an interesting one. Notre Dame at Stanford. Notre Dame big favorites in this game for the Legends Trophy. Fighting Irish, do we think they are rolling big this weekend, Blake?
Yeah, obviously we were all laughing about this earlier off podcast about this possibly being the last game for the Pac-12 network ever. Especially since it doesn't even have two Pac-12 teams in it; it's only got one in it. Notre Dame, though, good football team. I think without a doubt. Stanford, unfortunately, just not. We'll see what they can do when they join the ACC. I like Troy Taylor there. I think he, if you give him a couple of years, can get the right guys in place to at least be a competent football program. But what he took over there, unfortunately, he just does not have the guys to even remotely contend with Notre Dame at this point. The physicality level is going to be too much for that team. I think they're going to probably get run over pretty aggressively here. As much as I hate to say it. So I'm going to take Notre Dame to win this game, pretty handily. And for that, I'm going to take them to cover it as well. Big line, but I just trust the Irish to cover it. So
you're going Notre Dame big in this ball game. Tyler, I'll ask you, what are you thinking about this one?
Yeah, was a big fan of the Troy Taylor hire. Don't think a lot of people understood it just because, I don't think people realize how bad of a job Stanford is. It's just really hard to win there. And I think Troy Taylor, give him some time. I think, I'm agreeing with Blake, though. I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover here. I don't think this, I don't think the Stanford team is going to be just good enough. I don't think this will be a high-scoring game. I wouldn't be shocked if, Notre Dame just shuts them out and covers by, however much they need to. But, yeah, Notre Dame to cover. I don't think this game is going to be really close, which is unfortunate for the Stanford team.
Yeah, I agree with this one. I think Notre Dame is a big favorite in this game for a reason, and I think that the Fighting Irish are gonna keep things going in this year. Another good season for them, 9-3. That needs to be their standard every year, and they keep hitting it every year. Every year that a Notre Dame with a program that's built like that can get anything more than that, it's a really good year for them. But I'm going to go Notre Dame to win the Legends Trophy once again and to cover in this ball game. But now we're moving back down south to transition to a couple other games that we're going to hit on. The final really game that we're going to go in depth. Before that, we've got this one, clean old-fashioned hate. Georgia Tech. This one is in Bobby Dodd Stadium this year. Georgia big favorites, as mentioned, number one team in the country. It's a night game, though, on ABC. Georgia Tech has been the team that's really kind of, sprung a couple upsets here and there. But I think we really all kind of might have the dogs rolling, wouldn't you say, Blake?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, Brent Key has kind of developed a reputation since, of course, last year he took over as an interim coach at Georgia Tech, and this year is the full-time guy. But they've knocked off a couple of top 25 teams. I think he's 5-1 now against top 25 opponents. Impressive from him with kind of a lackluster roster, as much as you hate to say it, for as much as you hate to say it there for Georgia Tech, but that's just the truth of the matter. They are not what they need to be to contend with most teams. But impressive nonetheless. They've been able to do that. That being said, though, they're not going to contend with Georgia for the win here. I don't think by any means, especially with what Georgia has shown over the last handful of weeks. They have just kind of separated themselves, I think, from the field. I think we all kind of feel that way. They are the far and away best team in the country, and everyone else is playing catch up here. Um, I think the big line here benefits Georgia Tech. I think that at the end of the day, I think Tech will find a way to cover this one, especially being in Bobby Dodd. I think they're going to find a way, just to sneak a backdoor cover in here. Probably in the latter stages of it. I think they'll keep it close around the half. I think Georgia will try to open it up, right before, right after halftime, maybe. I think at the end of the game, though, you're going to see Georgia Tech just put up maybe a garbage time touchdown or two to sneak their way back into the cover range. But I don't think that this game will ever be in threat for the Bulldogs. I'm going to take Georgia to win with ease, but Georgia Tech just sneak that cover in there.
So you're going with the backdoor cover from Georgia Tech. Tyler, though, I will ask you, what are we thinking of this year's edition of Clean Old Fashioned Hate?
Yeah, I don't know how to really think about this game because in the back of my mind, I think Georgia Tech will make this game competitive. But looking at their last two games, the beatdown at Clemson, 12 o'clock noon game, just wasn't competitive. And they beat Syracuse by 9. They do what they do, but I was off about Syracuse this year. They're just not a very well together put team, and obviously with the coaching change there kind of solidifies that. But yeah, the back of my mind says Georgia Tech will cover, but I'm actually just going to go with Georgia. I have them at number one for a reason. They've been one of the best teams in the country, and I think now they're really starting to separate. So I'm going to take Georgia win and them to also cover.
So you're going with Georgia to win and covering this one, and I'm going to say this because you guys, like you said, Georgia is the number one team in the country, I will say, but I don't know if they're starting to separate from the pack, but I don't know if it's as much as convincingly as you two have said with that team. I still think that's nothing against Georgia. Georgia's Georgia. They're the best team in the country, and I'm not going to stick away with that. But I don't know if it's by as much a head and shoulders as it's been, or as you guys are describing it, as it's been the past couple of years. But Georgia's winning this game. I'm not gonna pick against that, obviously. But I'm gonna agree with Blake on this one. I think Georgia Tech has a little bit of a backdoor cover just because they're at home. It's a night game. Anything can happen. So yeah, we're gonna go with that one. We're gonna go with Georgia with the win and Georgia Tech with the backdoor cover. Now to another game that is an ACC versus SEC rivalry matchup, the Palmetto Bowl. Clemson at South Carolina, 7:30 SEC Network. This game last year, oh boy, this was an interesting game last year, the way it played out. This year it has just the same really, way of playing out. South Carolina was the spoiler team last year. This year's been a bit of a down year for them. Clemson, decent favorites in this ball game by about a touchdown and a half. But Blake, I'll ask you first, who are we thinking's winning this year in the Palmetto Bowl?
Yeah, just a fun spot here. Obviously, Clemson has kind of come on strong these last handful of weeks, about the last month even, honestly. And South Carolina has as well, but not to the same extent by any means. They've come on enough to win the games they need to win to fight for bowl eligibility this week. A disappointing year for Beamer and Co. there for sure. The offensive line, really just line scrimmage in general, both sides of the football let them down pretty heavily here. But obviously, especially that offensive line, they have, they've tried to almost get Spencer Rattler killed this year. They have looked horrific. Good class coming in there on the offensive line that you think maybe down the line will help this team a lot, and I believe they will even next year. But this year that they're not going to help that out. And against a Clemson team that has found a pass rush in the back half of the year, that's a big threat for sure for South Carolina. But this game being at South Carolina, gives a little bit of hope to the Gamecocks. Certainly, this is a spot where I have no doubt both teams are going to be up. I think you're going to see both teams play maybe the best they've played all season long. I think Clemson played, probably their best game against, against Florida State earlier in the year. It's hard to see them probably topping that one, to be fair. But I think it's going to be their best game by all means since then. And South Carolina, I think this will be their best game that you see them play this year. I think they'll be up for some certainly. It's just going to be about which iteration of these two teams is going to be better on this particular weekend. And what does home field advantage mean for South Carolina? I think it means a decent amount, but does it mean enough for them to flip feels as if a feels that it is a kind of significant talent advantage or talent gap right now that goes in favor of Clemson. I don't know that it does, especially with the level of play that we've seen kind of shift in favor of Clemson the last few weeks, as I said. Clemson has found a way to run the football with a pretty impressive level of efficiency that we didn't see them do earlier in the year. That has opened up that entire offense a lot more. I don't know that South Carolina's going to see any chance of stopping that one, truthfully. And if you can't stop the run game here against Clemson, the play action will be there, and Cade Klubnik will be able to pick you apart. Cade Klubnik, as I have believed all year long, and of last year as well, a very good quarterback, a very capable quarterback. The people that early in the year blamed Cade Klubnik, as I said, I think it was last week I mentioned it, just were wrong. Truthfully, Klubnik's a very capable guy. I am a big believer in him. I will stand by that through thick and thin. At this point, he's a great quarterback, and has potential to be really an elite quarterback for Clemson. If that's where he remains going into next season, we'll see how that goes about in the modern transfer portal era, obviously. But right now he's there, and he's going to ride this one out, and he'll play a good game this weekend, I think. With South Carolina's inability to get after the quarterback particularly well, their inability to stop the rush, their inability to cover downfield. The defense is weak for South Carolina, at least in regards to what Clemson can do offensively. I as much as I would like to say South Carolina's going to put up a fight here, I hope they do, truthfully. I just don't think it's going to be nearly enough to keep them in this game against Clemson, especially with the way Clemson has come on. I'm going to take Clemson to win this game, and I think I'm going to take them probably pretty handily here. I'm going to take them to cover. I'm going to take it 34 to 19 in favor of the Tigers over the Gamecocks here.
So you're going with Clemson to win and cover. Tyler, I'll ask you now, what are you thinking about the Palmetto Bowl this year?
Yeah, an interesting game. Was definitely a fun one to watch last year. I actually picked that game. Didn't think it was going to happen the way it did, but that's just how football works sometimes. Going to be an interesting matchup. Home rattler, different animal, but this Clemson defense has kind of found itself being able to get to the quarterback quite well, and we know South Carolina not the best at in pass pro, so going to be an interesting matchup because I think South Carolina offensively can offer something, and I think they will be able to score points, but obviously South Carolina is not a very well-off team when it comes to just several key areas. Just not very good defensively in general. Better in the run game, but just that secondary we've seen it time and time again. It's not the best, and I think South Carolina is going to have to be able to find a game where they play clean. Turnovers are not going to win this game, and they found themselves turning the ball over quite a decent amount. So we're going to see an interesting game, I think, because this game is. I don't think people realize how much hatred is between these two programs. And we could definitely see it, unfold Saturday. I just think Clemson is a well put together team, regardless of what I've thought of them in the past. Even if I don't think they're that good, or even if however good you think they are, they're a very balanced team, and I think they're just fine on both sides of the ball. So with that being said, I think Clemson, they put together a good game plan. I think Dabo is going to want this one to kind of shut everyone up. Go into bowl season, get a good bowl game here, and finish their year off strong. 34-24, I think Clemson is going to be able to pull it off. I do think we're going to see a strong performance from South Carolina. I just think Clemson's just a little bit better everywhere else.
So we all have in this game, I'll say this, we all have the same winner. I will spoil it here. I do have Clemson winning this game, but I think Home Rattler has a little bit in his right arm to keep this one a bit close. I will say for South Carolina. I think that South Carolina is they're a team, like I said, didn't really go to expectations this year. Wasn't exactly the best spot, but I mean, they have one last shot. They have Clemson. This is basically their Super Bowl this year. Blake has mentioned that a lot. Super Bowl games where teams kind of play up, and I think we're going to kind of see that from South Carolina this weekend. I think Clemson is the more talented team. I think Clemson has come on as the more talented team as of recent, and nothing has really told me that they've kind of found themselves this year after really struggling early on. Enough to get, Tyler a little bit of money in his pocket. Eventually, we'll get to that later. At some point, probably over the offseason of the Orbit Football podcast. But nonetheless, Clemson, they're just a team that I think is a better team in this situation, even with South Carolina, playing at home. Rattlers' final home game at Williams-Brice. I don't think that South Carolina, the way that they're built this year, is going to have enough to win this game, but I think they're going to have enough to keep this game very, 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 very close. And for that reason, I am going to go with Clemson in this ball game. I'm going to go 30-28. Going to go to the Tigers in this one. Very close ball game, but I just think Clemson has enough to win it. Now we're going to go to an ACC rivalry matchup. We've gone through all the 5 major matchups that we've talked about, gone in depth about those, and now we've got 4 more to round it out with this for really our quick hitters. And Tobacco Road, big one. UNC takes on NC State, 8 o'clock, ACC Network. Blake, who do we think takes home this rivalry victory this weekend?
Yeah, I'm just really worried about UNC here. They've lost a couple of really tough games these last couple of weeks. They've come out of ACC title contention here. Louisville obviously has locked themselves into that spot. NC State, you always know, will be up in this spot. Dave Doran does a great job getting those guys ready to go for really every week, but especially for big game weeks. So I have no questions about what NC State will be able to do here. And I do have those kind of questions about what UNC will be ready to do here. And for that reason, honestly and truly, I'm going to take NC State. Home field advantage helps out with that as well. So I think everything's, playing in favor of the Wolfpack here. So give me NC State to win this game outright as I believe, 2.5 point dogs. So yeah, give me NC State outright here to win this football game here.
So you're going to go with NC State in this ball game, going with the Wolfpack over North Carolina. Tyler, I'll ask you, how are you thinking about this game?
Yeah, I actually agree with Blake. I do think NC State is going to end up pulling this game out. I just, I have not been very high on NC State all year, but they've just won. They're 8-3, I believe. North Carolina just not a good past basically 2 months for this program. I just don't think it's a good spot for North Carolina. Even if, they are favorites, I think that team might just be kind of done this year. It's kind of unfortunate, but I do think NC State will win. I think they will cover, and I think, NC State should be setting themselves up for a pretty nice bowl game for that program.
So we're all going to agree on this one again. I got NC State winning this one as 2.5 dogs as well. North Carolina just they've fallen off. At one point in the season after that Miami victory, Tyler and I kind of thought that this team could contend, with the better teams in the country. And then since then, this team has just not been able to do it since that Virginia upset, and they've just returned back to being the North Carolina teams that we expect them to be. So I'm going to roll with NC State in this one. Now to the middle of the country, we're getting later on in the evening. This one, a very, very long-standing rivalry matchup. Farmageddon between Kansas State and Iowa State. Kansas State at home big favorites on Fox at 8 o'clock. Blake, who are we thinking takes home the victory in Farmageddon this year?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think this is I believe, longest standing Power Five rivalry we have going on right now. So great for this game. Hopefully we see it continue. Of course, there's questions around that right now. Hopefully we will see it continue going forward. But this specific year, as much as I like Matt Campbell and Iowa State and that program in general, in which I won't hide the fact I am big on what they do there every year. I really like what Matt Campbell does as a coach, the way he builds his teams, the way he coaches those guys, and the way he preaches towards those teams about process and being do something over be somebody. I've always been big on that. I like what Campbell does there, but on the field this weekend alone, I can't ride with it, unfortunately. I think Kansas State's too good of a football team. Kleiman's got those guys playing really good football right now. We saw it last week against Kansas in the Sunflower Showdown game, and I think they are going to play an even better game this weekend with a potential Big 12 title game up here and still on the line. They need some help. It's not out of the question though. So give me Kansas State to win this one, and give me Kansas State, I think, to actually cover this game as well. I think this game is going to probably be a pull away late for the Wildcats.
So you're going to go with Kansas State and to cover in this ball game. Tyler, how are you thinking about Farmageddon?
Yeah, I'm not really going to waste time on this one. I have Kansas State also winning and covering. Iowa State, it's we said this, about a few teams. I think last week was kind of a mini Super Bowl for them. Hosting Texas, who has everything in the world to look in front of them, and Iowa State, if they would have won that game, they would have been right there in the Big 12, contention for the championship game. So yeah, I don't think the spot is good at all for for Iowa State. So give me Kansas State to win and cover.
I'm going to agree with this one. I'm going to go Kansas State to win and cover in this one. I just think they're in a very good position. They still have a very outside shot to make the Big 12 title game, so I just think that this team is better. I've seen what Iowa State is this year in person, and I don't think that team has really changed much throughout the year. But yeah, I'm going to go with that one. Now to a Mountain West rivalry, Fresno State at San Diego State. This will be the last game coached by Brady Hoke, as he will be retiring for the Aztecs. They are not going to be bowl eligible this year. It's for the Oil Can Trophy. Fresno State, one of the top echelon teams in the Mountain West this year. Do we think that they take the rivalry victory in Brady Hoke's final game heading into retirement?
Yeah, one of these classical quote unquote retirements, as we say. With the gun pointed at their back, get out of town before we fire you moments for Brady Hoke, which you hate to see. That he's had that San Diego State program playing really good football for, a good handful of years now. This year just did not go really anywhere near as planned. Just not a good year for the Aztecs, and it's unfortunate that he will, more than likely end his career in this fashion. But truthfully, I don't see them winning this football game. Fresno is a good football team. They have been all year long. I've liked this team a lot more than others have. So I'm going to take Fresno State here to win this game, and I'm actually going to take them to cover. It's a 9-point spread, which maybe you think with the final game on the line for Hope that they can maybe cover that one. But I'm actually going to take Fresno State not only to win, but to cover this game on the road at that 9-point favorite spot. So give me Fresno State to win and cover here.
So you're going to go with Fresno State to win and cover in this ball game. Tyler, I'll ask you, are we agreeing with Blake?
So to go a little off script, Blake, it is actually 5.5. I did mess up on the sheet, so to correct that, but it's 5.5. But Blake still has them covering as well. But yeah, I'm gonna agree with Blake here. I think Fresno just gonna be too good for a team where, like Blake said, I don't really think it was up to Brady Hoke if he was gonna be in that job. They just they're gonna do it the nice way. So yeah, just don't think this is a good spot for San Diego State here. I think Fresno is just a really, really good team in the Mountain West there, and I'll take them to cover.
I'm going to agree once again with you guys. I'm going to go Fresno State to win and cover in this ball game. San Diego State, obviously, just, a tough season for them. And Fresno State, I think, is, as mentioned, one of the better teams in the Mountain West this year. So I'm going to pick them to win and cover in this ball game. And the final game that we're going to hit on before our upsets of the week, we're going to get back to that. We're going to round it back out with that. But Cal, UCLA, and the Bear Bowl. Probably the last time we're going to see this game for a while with the dissolving of the Pac-12 and Cal going to the ACC, funny enough, and UCLA going to the Big Ten. But UCLA favorites, 9-point favorites. Blake, I'll ask you first. What are we thinking about the Bear Bowl this year?
Yeah, this is just kind of a weird spot of a game, truthfully. There's a lot of questions about whether, this is the last game for Chip Kelly at UCLA. Obviously, I think we all three think that it seems probable that that's going to be the case with what we heard last week. Obviously, they retained him after that USC game, after they just frankly routed that team. They were kind of almost forced to keep him on board for the end of the season. We know things can change. We know things are fluid in the sport. We talked about that a couple of shows ago about how that is the case and how that always happens in these coaching situations late in the season, especially when things get leaked. So everything is on the table, certainly. But I think we all kind of lean towards this probably being the swan song for Chip Kelly. And with that being the case, and with Cal having that bowl game on the line here, I'm going to take Cal to win this game outright. I think it's going to be close, certainly. It's not going to be easy for the Golden Bears, but I think they're going to sneak this one out. I think they're going to make their way into a bowl game here, and just put together a nice little season for Wilcox in the game.
So you're going to go with Cal here in the upset. Tyler, I'll ask you, do we think Cal is also rolling with the upset in this one?
Yeah, I'm picking Cal. I think they win, and I do think they cover. I actually originally had this as my upset, but I did change it last second. But I think Cal is actually going to be in a good spot here. I like their offense and what they can do offensively, so give me the Golden Bears.
I'm going to switch this time. I'm going to go UCLA in this ball game. I thought they looked really good last weekend against USC. I got them in my top 25. They're at home. Granted, the Rose Bowl at home for UCLA isn't really the greatest thing in the world, but still have to make the travel down to Cal from Berkeley to the Rose Bowl, to Pasadena there. So I'm going to go with the team that is the team of LA this year, and I'm going to go with UCLA in this one. I do think Cal does cover, though. Only a 9.5 spread. I will say Cal does cover. We all three agree that Cal will cover, but I'm going to pick UCLA outright in this ball game, and that wraps up all of our picks. We've gone through 25 games, folks, through this week. We did a full rundown there of a ton of games this week. But now we got to go to the upsets. Obviously, me and Blake have kind of announced ours. Blake is going to go with Boston College over Miami, as said. I will note, though, that that line, when we recorded the episode that was released Wednesday morning, the line was at 8.5. We're recording this one at Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and the line is at 10 now. So it changed a little bit since our recording. So Blake is still taking Boston College, a +10 underdog. You're going to go and take them over Miami. You predicted that in the show earlier in the week. And Tyler, I will turn it over to you. What is your upset of the week?
Yeah, I was originally going to go with Cal over UCLA, but I kind of wanted to go offset. You guys are both picking upsets that we currently covered. So I'm going to go with something that's not on the show, give some other teams some love. I'm going to go Houston over UCF. Probably going to be the end of Dana Holgorsen there. Think that Dana's probably going to want to get a win there. Think Houston's in a good spot. Going to be a warm weather game, so nothing different for both of those programs. So give me Houston.
You're going with Houston. As I mentioned, I'm rolling with A&M over LSU +11 as my upset of the week, and that will wrap up. We've gone full in-depth rivalry week. We had a lot of fun with these two episodes, a lot of time put in this week with these two episodes, but it's not done yet. This isn't the end of the road after this week for the Orbit Football Podcast or for college football. Obviously, the following week we got conference championship games that'll be inbound. We're definitely going to be talking about Army-Navy when that rolls around. Got to talk about that game. We're going to talk about, obviously, bowl season when it comes around, but that's all for the regular season. The next time that you're going to see us, it'll be the postseason time, and hear from us, it'll be the postseason time. But for Tyler, for Blake, this is Cade. You've been listening to the Orbit Football Podcast. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. We post there pretty regularly throughout the week, leading up to the games each Saturday, as well as throughout the midweek this week. We will be posting a lot more often, as we've gotten, a lot more midweek action here with this week with Rivalry Week. But make sure to listen to the Orbit Football Podcast on Spotify as well as YouTube. Make sure to stay up to date with us. But we will see you once again next week for recapping Rivalry Week and getting into the postseason of Conference Championship Week. But you have been listening to the Orbit Football Podcast.